Good morning, Commissioner Havel.
Morning, Janelle.
Can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner Wilson.
Good morning.
Can hear you. Thank you.
Good.
Good morning, Commissioner Foster.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you. Can hear you. Good morning, Commissioner Eskridge.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's 8 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. And let's see, welcome to all of our guests. Janelle, you want to go through the virtual meeting guidance, please? Janelle?
I apologize. I thought I had clicked it. 9 months in, still have to work out a couple kinks.
Yeah.
Well, good morning. Good morning, all, and welcome to this sunny November 12th Commission meeting. Welcome members of the public and also staff with us here today. As you know, we have 2 decorum rules for everyone to please follow. So number 1, and please ensure your mic is muted unless you're speaking. And number 2, please state your name before speaking, just so we can have accurate minutes as to who's with us today and comments to be captured. With that, let's have a great meeting and welcome once again.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Let's see, Michael, do you have any announcements?
President Hubble, I do not have any announcements this morning.
Okay. That will take us to item 2, any appearances by any members of the public? Any appearances? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar, item number 3. We have the approval of minutes from the 29th of October, approval of cash statements for operating capital projects debt service, an expedited boundary annexation, Edison LLC property, City of Madison, review and approval of sewer extension plans, and that includes, I think, Cottage Grove Commons Phase 2 and the West Interceptor Shorewood Relief, the Phase 1 of that large project on the west side of Madison. And then we have review and approval of 2020 rotary lobe pumping unit purchases. Before we get a motion, are there any questions on any of the items on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
It's Wilson. I'll make a motion to approve the items in the consent calendar.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Tom Wilson. Do we have a second?
I'm happy to second Commissioner Meyer.
Oh, okay, Ezra, thank you for joining. I didn't have you. So motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Meyer to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed?
Abstain, Tom. Commissioner Clark.
Okay, Commissioner Clark will be abstaining. He was not at the last meeting. Okay, so that will take us to agenda 4A, commission elections. And Michael, did you want to give a brief?
I would, President Hubble. This item it's something the commission does every year. You elect officers for the district. We have 3 official officer positions. 2 of them are required by state statutes, and that would be the president and secretary. The commission has also established a vice president position to serve in the capacity of president when the president is not available to provide services. This year in the car, I've done something just slightly different, and you can acknowledge this difference or continue to do things the way you have done them. But in the past, you have done elections by having nominations and then voting on the slate, and then those new or reconfirmed officials take office at the next available commission meeting, and that works just fine. I'm proposing a little change that the new officials would officially take on their responsibilities on January 1st, so they would serve for a calendar year. And I've done that for really one reason. If a candidate was to be nominated and they wanted to review the responsibilities first before agreeing to hold office, that would allow time to do so. It would provide a smooth transition in times where we have changes to commissioner appointments. So if someone, vacated a seat or was elected into a new seat, they would have time to learn the new responsibilities. So that's a slight change. One option, of course, would be instead of voting the slate in and starting January 1st, is continue with current practice of having the commissioner begin serving officially at the next meeting. Or the commission could have a nomination period of having nominations at this meeting and then holding the formal election at the next meeting. And those officers could be approved by resolution, and it would allow the public, if they wanted a chance to weigh in on the nominations, to do so, and for commissioners who are being nominated to think it through and to see if they want to serve. So those are the little changes I'm putting on the table for commission discussion. And if you don't like any of those, you can just move forward with your normal process and we'll be good. And I'll turn it back over to you, President Hubble.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So does anybody have any opinion? Do we just continue with the way we have, or we want to change the start date process or anything?
One quick question, President Hubble. I'm for Michael. I know we just learned of the renewals of several commissioners' appointments in the last month or something, late summer, early fall, I think. I'm just wondering if there's anything about the timing of when that happens. If, for instance, somebody, is the vice president beginning whenever we decide this fall or January, is their term up in September where it's sort of off with this new 12-month timing that you're suggesting, or is there no concern there?
I think that's a valid consideration. And the appointment terms do roll with the terms of when those terms start, which is typically October.
Commissioner Hubble, I see that you have a hand up with.
Yep, Beth, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that being a newer member and learning all the ropes and everything, and I've been new and only attended 1 or 2 in-person meetings, so I think it would be really good for us to give people that time after a nomination to really learn the roles. And I just speak for being kind of newer to the commission and having, allowing people an opportunity to do that. So I would really support having the nomination and then the starting period in the calendar year.
Okay, anybody else? Sarah, you have a hand
Yeah,
up?
thanks, Tom. I agree with Commissioner Bookland. I'm curious, though. I was going to ask the question of those of you who have served in leadership roles, if you believe that would be helpful. I think we've done some carryover. Mary might be the most recent new officer, and I'm curious if you think that would be helpful, or if there are any downsides that I'm not considering, because I'm not sensing any right now, but I would love if others have some, if they would share them.
Yeah, I could, Commissioner Swanson, I could speak to that, to Sarah's point. When I took over as secretary, even though I had been on the commission for a little while, that time on the commission didn't really serve as any sort of training for what it's like to be a secretary, to be the secretary. And it, it's just sort of like, okay, here's what you do, right? So I don't know what the other roles entail really, except by, watching, observing. So for whatever that's worth.
It's hard for me to say because I was on the commission for many years before it was reconstituted. And I had served as secretary, for part of that time. So yeah, it's difficult for me to say because I'd gotten to learn the ropes of the commission. Obviously, there's, with the change of the reconstituting commission, the number of people somewhat changed, obviously. So there's a different dynamic. But I don't know, if Ezra, you served as two.
Yeah, I've served as both secretary and vice president. Boy, it's really such a sort of 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other thing. For me, it's not, I don't have a real strong leaning one way or the other. And the only issue that came up in my head was the one I asked Michael about. And there's always a little bit of lag time, or there can be anyway, in those reappointments or renewals or that sort of thing. So I'm not even sure that's much of a concern, even if there's a slight offset in the timing there. So yeah, I'm inclined to go the route that Michael suggests, but with relative ambivalence between the two options.
Okay, Commissioner Wilson, then Commissioner Foster.
Relative ambivalence, huh? Yeah, I guess I think that Michael's idea is a good idea. Frankly, it gives people, if we happen to go through a change, I think that it gives an opportunity to ask some questions, figure it out, rather than just have to do it right away. So I had 3 comments. That was one. 2 was for Ezra. If we had a situation that arose like that, and there was a month or 2 or however time period there might be, considering that sometimes there is a lag, like you said, in the appointment, but certainly one of us could fill an interim position, or it could be handled in that way until the term needs to be filled again, right? I mean, I think that would be an easy way to handle it. And the third point I had was a question. Our officers that are currently in their positions, would you like to continue in those positions?
I would do so, yeah.
Same here. I'm happy to continue.
I'm happy to continue as secretary, although Commissioner Swanson, my situation professionally is changing, and I might not stay in the Madison area for another year. It's uncertain, and the thing about secretary is sometimes you actually have to sign things in person, so that's one consideration for me. I think I'd be happy to continue doing it as long as I am in the area, but if I left, then I don't think it would work. So,
okay.
Thank you,
Commissioner. Yeah, thank you, Mary and Ezra. Commissioner Foster.
Thank you, and thanks for preparing this, Michael. I also don't have very strong feelings in terms of whether there's a sort of period between nominations and actual election, but I did actually find Ezra's question or point to be a little compelling. So I don't know if there are advantages to using the calendar year for these terms, but it seems like it would be better to consider aligning it with the terms. I know it's not we certainly do that with Common Council leadership, for example, although all of the terms end in the same year. We've got staggered terms here, but to elect someone to one of these offices that may not be reappointed in October, it just Commissioner Wilson, I agree that we can deal with it, we can roll with it, but I guess I'm not sure what the advantages of having it on a calendar year are, and I guess I'd be interested, perhaps, Michael, you could just kind of look into this and see if there are any pros or cons, but I would, I guess, be interested in considering aligning the officer terms with the regular commissioner terms.
My only follow-up is the commission did a really good job a few years ago in the policy book of outlining the responsibilities of all 3 officer positions. So if you're curious about what does a secretary do, what does the vice president do, those responsibilities are outlined really well. Commission spent some time working on that. I think there is an onboarding responsibility that I have to help with new officers, to help new officers be successful, and that even just a few weeks is helpful. Now, we're doing this at this time. We could delay officer elections 2 more weeks and be closer to the January 1st start. So if the appointments occur, which always should occur around October, they don't always. Sometimes, as you know, they have been delayed. Then we could modify when the commission has the nomination and elections a little bit later in the calendar year than what you've traditionally done, which is this time of year. So that's the only change. I don't have very strong feelings myself, but I felt that now would be a good time to at least look at your process. And if you're happy with it the way it is, it's fine. But if you want to make some slight adjustments, which I'm recommending, please feel free to do so.
Grant, you have your hand up. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I guess I just did want to clarify. So I'm kind of hearing maybe 2 different potential kind of lag periods. So one, as I was reading it, was between nomination and actual election, and then another would be between election and actually start date. So I guess just maybe to clarify, it sounds like perhaps what you were just saying, Michael, perhaps that second one would be the more valuable. So once someone's elected, maybe there's an onboarding period where they can sort of get prepared, trained, et cetera, and then start. Maybe that would be the sort of the more important one, rather than having a lag between the kind of nomination and actual election stage. So one, I guess maybe just clarifying which one or both are we talking about, and then
Thank you.
2, in terms of the actual period. I think my point, or what I was hearing from Ezra, is I guess my interest would be to consider aligning the end of the officer terms with the end of the commission terms, so that basically trying to avoid a scenario where we have an officer who is not reappointed at the end of their term, and then we have a vacancy that would sort of, that we need to deal with. So I think less about giving time after a new appointment to hold an election, but rather actually doing the election and having officers ready to take office by the end of the typical commission term, I think is what I would maybe suggest that we look at.
Thank you. The staff recommendation is that there would not be a nomination period, that you would have a nomination and elect today, and then those appointments would officially go into effect on January 1st. That's the staff recommendation. Option 1 is to hold a nomination period, and then at a future meeting, which would be the next meeting, have the official election.
Okay, so yeah, basically the staff recommendation is to nominate and select on the day of, but the official appointment day would take effect January 1 to December 31. And then so you'd have a potential lame duck or situation, or the situation Ezra brought up. But we hold terms for 3 years unless somebody departs. You are right. There are times when there is a delay that is a month or more. So I don't know I don't see that January 1 is a big issue.
Well, it isn't, and commissioners serve until appointed otherwise. And we've had periods, long gaps with commissioners not being reappointed for a variety of reasons, and they've continued to serve.
Right.
And Paul Kent can weigh in here. We've looked at, could we change the October appointment date? And with the state with how the legislator structured the new commission, there are some limitations of, we can't adjust too much the dates of the official appointment date, but we can, which is the October timeframe. But commissioners have served without being.
Okay, so let's see, what do we want to take a vote on to proceed with the staff recommendation that nominate and select today and then effective January 1?
Commissioner Havel, this is Janelle. I
Yes.
just want to make you
Oh,
aware.
Commissioner Wilson has his hand up.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, Tom.
Not to beat a dead horse, but maybe this isn't a problem this year. You know, my belief is that our officers that are in place are great, have done great jobs. Don't know why we wouldn't continue that. And so it seems like maybe this is something we could revisit maybe next summer, you know, before the terms are up, and consider what we want to do, which would be probably either extending their terms a couple months or not. But for now, it seems like with the 3 people that we have that are officers, at least in my opinion, they're doing a great job and they're all willing to continue. And I think that if other people would agree, then this is something that we just don't have to deal with. And I don't know that it's a big can we're kicking down the road, but we can look at it in the summer and you know, make sure that we've got it taken care of for October. So, you know, my position would be, and I would be willing to make the motion if we need to have like a slate of officers and that we just, you know, they're during their normal terms that we have set up now. But I want to make sure everybody else is in line with that, or if there's someone else that actually we want to have a race, we could have a race, I guess. But it seems to me that we're in good shape right now, and this is something we can kick down the road and then get some time in the summer and figure it out. That's my thoughts.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Brad, you have your hand up?
Yes, I was just going to agree with what Tom said. I think that it was a good discussion, and it's worth considering this for the future. But given that we have 3 commission members that have indicated that they're willing to continue to serve, I think it's fine to reappoint those commission members at this point. And in the event that we have somebody leave or need to consider changes, I think we can have this discussion again in the future. Thank you.
Okay. So do you want to make a motion to that effect or does anybody else want to weigh in? And then
This is Commissioner Clark. I agree with the strategy that Commissioner Wilson and Murphy just discussed.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion to maintain the current slate of and just select us? And okay, Commissioner Wilson makes the motion.
Second.
And that was second by Commissioner Murphy.
Correct.
Okay, to continue with the slate of existing officers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay, so we'll take a look at this if an officer leaves or something, or later next year at some point. Okay,
Thank you. That's really helpful, and your terms are official as of next meeting.
Yep.
Welcome.
And thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the officers for the time that they put in those positions.
Oh, you're welcome.
Welcome, definitely. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, thank you for your confidence. Okay, that will take us to 4B, review and approval of purchase and installation of network hardware. And I've got to move my screen here. Oh, something happened.
This is Janelle. We are just waiting for the current presenter to share their screen and put put their presentation up. So sometimes it takes just a moment.
Yeah, there's a little bit of lag here. Oh. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties.
Ms. Dunn, I also have your presentation queued up and can help navigate that if you would like.
Okay, let me give it one more sheet.
Okay.
So I apologize. There we go. Okay.
Hey, Janelle, I have a question for you. When were you doing your training on the new, was that next meeting?
Yes, Commissioner Havel, it will be at next meeting and you will all receive a little surprise in the mail. For those that have iPads, we will be sending out just very simple instructions on how to get the app and install it on your iPad. And for those couple of commissioners that don't have an iPad, you will have them installed for you. And I will be reaching out to you shortly to make arrangements for a delivery of your new iPads. But yes, next meeting is the training, correct?
Janelle, can you tell me what are you seeing on your end? Are you seeing the notes page or are you seeing the slide?
We do see the notes page.
I can't get it flipped over.
Yeah, we see the slide on the left and the note.
Yeah, I tried it this morning and.
Display settings, Lori. I think that's where you'll find that toggle.
Yeah, I flipped the display settings this morning. Might be the order that I'm selecting to do this in. Yeah, Janelle, I don't want to stall any longer. Would you mind just running the slideshow?
Certainly, it will take me just a moment to pull it up. So if you could,
sorry about that.
That's okay.
So how's everyone doing? You know, lawyers always got to talk during these long pauses. A beautiful day. It's winter. The toilets flush here at Westport. It's always a good thing, right?
I heard they go in the opposite direction though in Westport.
If that was meaning that it all goes towards DeForest, it kind of all does go that way, yes. Just something that Ken might want to know.
Yes, that's what DeForest thinks, Tom.
Okay, it'll be just 1 second here, everybody. Let's see here. Okay, can you all see that?
Nope, not yet, Janelle.
Okay. I apologize, my Zoom panel keeps being hit on me.
Janelle, if you want, I could also just try it running the slides, just running the slideshow, and I can read off an old script. It should be pretty close to what I wanted to say, and I think I'll remember. If you'd just like me to try that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my Zoom panel is saying I'm sharing the correct screen, but it is not.
Yeah, that's what how about if I just give it a go? I think we'll be good.
Okay.
I think you got it, Janelle.
Okay. Let me just get it on the full screen mode. And do you see the full screen mode, everybody?
Well, yeah, we see
the note page on the right because it shows the next slide.
All right, let's try that. How about now?
Yep.
Looks good.
Okay.
Looks like a computer chip.
Okay.
Is everybody seeing a title on that too?
No title.
Oh.
Yeah, the slide is cut off.
Well, it says MMSD at the bottom, Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District.
Yeah, there's a title at the top. I'm worried that the rest of the slides will be cut off.
I think the commissioners also have access to the slides on the website.
All right, how about if I just give it a go from my screen? I think it will be fine.
Yep.
So let me try to share it out again. Wow, IT manager can't get the. Good grief.
Michael, do you have a lot that you could, do you have anything you could give for the CED update while we wait to see if she gets her screen going?
Thank you. Yes, I do have one item. With the ongoing COVID pandemic, we're starting to experience some potential effects with contractors having crews that are not able to show up to work, and it's creating possible delays and could create possible claims. We don't have any claims yet, but given we have some of our projects like the UV disinfection project and our compliance, we have a very short compliance window with which to replace that system. If, for example, one of our contractors, the whole crew was out, which is what we're experiencing with one of our contractors, that could create some delays. We have our legal staff, they're involved on the ground floor should there be claims in the future. But I wanted to just make you aware of that in terms of scope, schedule, and budget. There may be some effects in months to come with these contracts as we close them out. But I'll keep posting if there are any major issues. Bruce Borelli, when he gives his regular project update, he can inform the commission of any of the specifics on projects if that should occur. That's the only CED update I have.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I don't know if it's worth contacting the DNR in case we end up with issues with the disinfection system now and say, look, it's something beyond our control.
Yes.
And I would just add that I think that would be appropriate. The department has been relatively flexible in responding to COVID-related issues, but I think it's also one of those things I think need to have a better sense of whether that's actually going to be a problem before touching base with them.
Yeah, I agree. But as soon as we find out, we should notify them. Yeah.
Yep.
Lori, how are you doing?
Can you see that?
No.
Oh, I assumed it was. Am I sharing? 'Share screen. 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 '
Michael or Paul, this is Commissioner Clark. Do we have any contractors that are addressing this in their legal language? The COVID issue?
Well, I know that there was at least some discussion early on about whether this gets defined as a force majeure event. And generally, the answer is no, but there may be some specifics that we'll need to be looking at as this moves from theory into actuality.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Lori, it looks like your screen's up. We see purchase and installation of network hardware along with the photo.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm Lori Dunn. I'm the district's information systems manager. I'm here today to ask for approval for a contract for the purchase and installation of new network hardware. I would also like to update you on some of the important related changes planned for our network. This year, we are at a point where we have several drivers for replacing some of our network hardware. We have multiple servers, backup units, and storage appliances, all reaching their end of life. This means that they present with an increasing risk for failures and reduced performance, present security risks, or there could be a failure that results in hardware no longer being usable. This equipment will also soon have less support from the manufacturers, both in general support for technical issues and for available replacement parts. Because this replacement will affect multiple pieces of equipment, it also presents us with some opportunities for additions and changes to our network design. One of the first things we thought of was the opportunity to provide a faster option for disaster recovery services with redundant network equipment installed at the maintenance facility. This would allow us to more quickly reestablish network services and preserve our data should something happen to the data center in the operations building. We do have a disaster recovery site located at the First Street location, but it is no longer meeting our needs. Our data growth has exceeded our ability to effectively sync all data to the First Street site. Fiber network is not available, and costs for commercial internet services with the capacity for reasonably fast synchronization is cost prohibitive. Our data growth has exceeded our ability to effectively sync all data to the First Street site. Fiber, that's where it was. While we still plan to use that site as a home base for restoring technology services in a situation where the plant is not usable, we are now able to use technology to gain additional benefits from having a disaster recovery option at the plant. The alternative maintenance facility location could be used in many situations, and it will also allow for faster failover to the redundant equipment. We could restore nearly all our network and data services in 4 hours instead of the week it would take to restore those services at the First Street site. This replacement project is also an opportunity to consider new options for network equipment. Most notably, we looked at the viability of moving to a hyperconverged infrastructure, or HCI. Moving to HCI would bring together in one appliance the services provided by multiple pieces of equipment. The HCI solution is something we've been learning more about over the past few years, and staff felt it was a reasonable option at this time, as it is now well developed and used by many other organizations. And I'm sorry. We also discussed this option with some of our trusted technology partners, and we received positive feedback. Moving towards this newer, but already successfully applied solution also aligns well with the technology adoption approach we established in our 2016 IT strategic plan. This was a commitment to taking advantage of new technology options that benefit the district, while also making sure that those technologies have been used successfully by others. We describe that as a focus on leading edge technology instead of bleeding edge technology, which comes with a much higher risk for unpredictable costs and a higher rate of failure. There are several benefits of using HCI over multiple appliances or equipment. It provides a single interface to all technology services, so IT staff can manage and troubleshoot from one centralized console instead of multiple interfaces to the different equipment. Resources like memory and storage can be shared more efficiently across many services. Staff can designate that usage, and they can also set up automation rules for how resources should be shared, and the appliance will take care of the rest. HCI is also very expandable, and it also provides new capabilities. This includes integrating things like additional devices, including additional HCI appliances, cloud resources, virtualized desktop, and application services. These are all things we are considering for future development, and they will be essential for continuing to expand our services and security for remote work and for mobility in the field. For our current project, we will be moving services currently provided by 5 servers, 2 network storage appliances, and 2 backup appliances to a single Nutanix HCI appliance. We will also be installing a slightly smaller Nutanix appliance at the maintenance facility to serve as our disaster recovery site. Because there are a variety of HCI solutions in the marketplace, IT staff researched multiple possibilities for one that would best provide the features we need while also staying within our budget. We decided that the Nutanix appliance was the best fit. We also knew that the Nutanix appliance would be available from multiple local vendor consultants, so bidding could be competitive and future consultant support would be easily available. Selecting the exact appliance also allowed us to do a very good apples to apples comparison of the bids. This would have been much more difficult if we let the vendors select their preference for the appliance. We received 7 bids from our project. The bids ranged from around $215,000 to $311,000. Alevity had the lowest bid and they met all our requirements. IT staff carefully reviewed that bid and confirmed that the proposed equipment and work plan would meet our requirements. Staff recommends that Alevity be awarded the contract for the purchase and installation of network hardware. If awarded, Alevity would begin the work immediately, with the goal being to have the project done by early 2021. Are there any questions?
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, this is Commissioner Bookland. And I do have a question, and that is, what would be the risk with relying on a single appliance like that? And then do you have a backup plan should that appliance go down?
Those types of appliance, it does have like internal to it some backup redundancy. So there's disks that are set up to kind of mirror each other. So disks can fail, it will still serve up all the data and the files. It has duplicate power supplies. It had a lot of the resources internal to it are redundant. It would definitely slow down the services if pieces started to fail. There's also kind of an internal monitoring that always goes on inside there. So if the system sees something that may be a potential fail, it does send out alerts to the network staff that something might be up. And you can also set up those alerts to go directly to the Nutanix people. So they, sometimes with that situation, they would even call us first. There is, there'd be a risk of failure if there was some sort of destruction of like that entire device, but that's, again, we would have the duplicate device at the maintenance facility. So we would fail over to that device. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. So is there any, I guess my second question is there any risk with total failure of the device? What if, I don't know, So, and then what would be the plan?
If the whole appliance failed, we would fail over to the duplicate appliance at the maintenance facility.
So the maintenance facility acts as your backup?
Yes, it's almost like a redundant network. It would take a number of hours, like those 4 hours to get everything spun up again. But that is a redundant network over there.
The whole idea of backups was to have something somewhere off-site in case there was a catastrophe on site. So you think that between the administration building and the maintenance facility, there's enough separation that you don't have to worry about that both wouldn't get affected by some type of thing at the same time, natural event or something?
Yeah, we're actually storing the backups in the cloud, and we would bring them down to the redundant facility.
Got it. Okay, anybody else have any questions? Beth, are you satisfied?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, and then this company, they're well known and have, okay, and you're confident on the service and support that, a few years from now, they'll still be around and providing that service and support?
Yeah, we did do quite a bit of research on that. I guess, there's always a chance that something could change, but they are a bigger player in the marketplace.
Okay. Okay, so I don't see any other hands up or any questions. We have a motion on the installation of network hardware and to adopt the draft resolution 11/9/20.
It's Wilson. I would move that we adopt the resolution awarding the contract for the purchase and installation of the network hardware to Levity and authorize the chief engineer and director to execute an award with a Levity for $215,670.40.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have a motion by Commissioner Wilson? Do we have a second?
This is Eskridge. I'll second.
Okay, was that Commissioner Eskridge?
Yep.
Okay, so motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Eskridge. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the purchase of the network hardware at the value stated by Tom, including the 40 cents. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. Okay.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, that will take us to Sarah. You're going to update us on the CED performance review and give us your thoughts for the next realignment.
I am. So this agenda item is really, as Commissioner Hall said, an update, and happy to take any questions. Also happy to have my fellow task force subcommittee, whatever we're called, members chime in. So Ezra and Grant, don't hesitate to chime in. Just a quick, like I said, a quick update. So as you all know, and some of you may be more familiar with than others, a quick history of how CED performance review process has changed in the past few years. So we have a commission policy. If you go to our website, there's a policy specific to CED performance that says basically we as a commission are responsible for systemically and rigorously monitoring the progress of the CED based on the expected job outcomes that are outputs that are described in our policy book. That's how policy governance describes this, and that it will be done annually, and it refers to an attachment that overviews the process that we've gone through annually for the past couple of years. So the current process that we're using was originally created, for those of you who were on the commission at the time, by Commissioner Potts, Commissioner James, and Commissioner Meyer back in 2018, after we switched to this new commission format. And we've used that same process for the past couple years. So we used it in 2019 with Commissioner Hubble and I, and Commissioner Meyer, and then we used it again this year with Commissioner Meyer, Commissioner Foster, and I. So after using it for a few years, as we talked at the end of this year's performance review with you all as a commission, we felt like there were some opportunities to improve our process of the annual CED review, particularly around the timeliness of the process. I think we've gotten better on we always do a retrospective to the year, and it takes a while for us to get through our process, and we end up talking about the year prior in halfway through the next year. So I think there's some opportunities to improve the timeliness of our process. We also think there are some opportunities to align our CED review process with some of the regular commission work processes where we're reviewing our commission policies and goals and strategic plan, because essentially that's what we are assessing the CED based on, is his performance and the district's performance as a whole. So as a subcommittee, we've been diving into a little bit, to details around each of those things. But before we went any further, we wanted to come back to you all as a whole commission to say, we'd like to keep working on this, and we'd like to ultimately update that attachment in our policy book to realign some of the timing and the alignment with other regular commission review policies to make sure that we are doing this process in the best and frankly most efficient way possible, so that we are doing our job well, but we are also doing it efficiently and in alignment with our other processes. So we want to spend some time doing that as the subcommittee, me and Ezra and Grant. We'd like to keep providing you all regular updates and work really closely with Michael as we think through that process and update it. But before we dove into that, we wanted to make sure that we answered any questions that you all had as a whole commission and get your explicit approval for us to keep doing that work and come back to you with an updated ATT4 commission review process for the CED. I'm getting a thumbs up from Commissioner Wilson. Any questions from anybody or any additional comments from my colleagues?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Anybody have any questions, or does Grant or Ezra want to add anything?
Okay.
Well, I don't see any hands or hear anything, Sarah, so I think it's a thumbs up. Great. For your task.
Great.
Hey, Sarah, this is Tom Wilson. Is there you don't need a motion on this, or you don't really think you need a motion? If we got consensus from the commission to go forward, that's good enough for you?
That's good enough for me. Ezra and Grant, is that okay with you?
Yeah, that works.
Well, if it's good enough for y'all, it's good enough for me. So thank you.
Okay. Well, the minutes can just reflect that there was consent to the commission to move ahead with the
That would be helpful. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Let's see. Then we're going to have discussion of Zoom protocol, item 4D. Excuse me, Commissioner Foster brought up the possibility of asking, we're doing hands a little better, the raised hands, so that's in the works, but also about using video as they do at the City of Madison. So Grant, did you want to add anything further on that?
Sure, thanks, Tom. Yeah, I guess raise the question as we're sort of, as a society, I think we were kind of thrown into video meetings due to COVID in a lot of realms. So commission being one of those places, my kids doing school via Zoom, et cetera. And, I think it's actually worked pretty well in a lot of those environments, considering the pretty abrupt change. And I think it's good that the technology was in a place where it has been feasible. But I think we're in a lot of those environments, we're sort of learning and forming kind of new habits and standards around how that works. And I know that the discussions come up again in the context of school for my kids and their use of video, et cetera. And it's something that we have talked a little bit about at the City of Madison, and we've established sort of a standard protocol. Although even that, I think there are some questions around perhaps reviewing that and making adjustments or at least confirming that that's the protocol we want to continue using. So I just wanted to kind of raise it here as well, given that it seems likely that we'll be kind of working under this format for the foreseeable future. If it would be worth reviewing and setting any kind of guidelines or standards for just some of the kind of technical features of these meetings. So the ones that jumped out for me were, primarily I think use of video. So broadly, the kind of standards for the city of Madison, especially for our common council meetings, is that we ask that all members of the body turn their video on during meetings and keep them on as they're able. It's not sort of enforced in any way. And if somebody, if you need to go do something or something comes up, you turn your video off. There are times where technology just gets in the way, or you may be somewhere without good signal, and so you don't have your video on. So it's not like I said, it's not something that's enforced, but it is something just in the beginning of each meeting as we're reviewing kind of the protocols. There's an ask that all members of the body turn their video on and leave it on as they're able throughout the meeting. Staff generally leave their video off, except when they are kind of presenting, which sort of helps just show kind of who's there. I think there is a value in that, just from sort of meeting dynamics and being able to more closely approximate the real life meetings that we were having. I think it is also helpful to ensure that quorum is maintained during meetings. If it's just a bunch of black boxes, we sort of assume that everybody's still there, but obviously that's not always the case. So I think it's a good kind of practice that I wanted to just, I guess, talk about here and get people's reactions, and think it might just help us continue to have the best format for our meetings. And then I think pretty much the other one that came up was, as Tom, as you mentioned, the use of the kind of raise hand feature in Zoom. It's a little bit awkward because it's in the participants screen. So that's something I've had to just sort of grow accustomed to for city meetings, is always having that participants screen open in order to use the raise hand feature. And in smaller discussions with 3 or 4 people, it certainly doesn't seem very necessary, but as the number of attendees grow and we're trying to kind of all jump in at once, I think especially without video, it's just the likelihood of us stepping on each other, it's just kind of goes up. So I wanted to suggest that we consider kind of generally relying on that raise hand feature just to kind of keep some order to our meeting. So I think those were the kind of 2 key points that I had thought about and just wanted to have a discussion about.
Okay, so anybody else have any thoughts? I think we're starting to learn the raise hands feature and starting to try to track it better on the screen. But the video, I don't know. I mean, some people turn it on, some people don't. Some have it on for a while, some don't. So I don't want to necessarily force people, but I'd be glad to hear what other commission members had to say. Go ahead, Tom. Tom?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Grant just said, frankly. The only thing that I wanted to just kind of put out there for consideration is that maybe it's something that those couple things, maybe that's something we could add to what Janelle says at the beginning of the meeting. Maybe that's helpful. I don't know that we necessarily need like some kind of adopted protocol or anything. It's just sort of an understood way to run our meetings for this point. And you're right, Grant, we might be doing this for a while. I know we've talked about this at the town, and I only have 5 board members, and my 5 board members are all of the opinion we're going to be doing this for a while, and they're happy to do it. And they're always on the screen. I think it's because they like seeing themselves on, what they consider TV, frankly. But they're always on the screen, and my plant commissioners have been that way. I like the way we run these meetings. I've seen different governments run it in different ways. And I know, for instance, Wanakee has 2 different levels, and I've seen other people do that where they have the members and then like other participants that are at a lower level, and they just kind of watch, but you can't see their reaction. You can't see them. it's different than a meeting, and I'm not particularly a fan of that. So I like how we're doing this, that, you know, hey, Greg Freeze is on here. Well, if Greg wanted to be seen, he could pop up his camera and say, you know, and Tom could recognize him if he wanted to, or he could raise his hand. I think we do it that way, and I think that's a good way to do it, because otherwise, you know, we may be missing some things. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. I think Grant's suggestions are good, and maybe it's something that Janelle could just remind us of in the beginning of the meetings. And I guess that was just how I think maybe we could go forward, and I will be quiet now.
Ezra, you have your hand up?
I do. I have all my hands up. I have just trying that on for size, because it is a little bit hidden. I agree too with the notion that we should try to all be on video as much as we can. I wouldn't want it to be too concrete of a rule, because there's times when it helps to turn it off for bandwidth reasons or for whatever else. But I like that. And then I did, you know, I actually took note last meeting. I don't mean to pick on anybody from staff, but I just, you know, it stood out for me that I didn't see Matt and Rachel when they were presenting, and it would have been nice to, you know, when a staff person is going to make a presentation, even if it's just for a moment at the beginning, and then the video could be turned off while they're presenting potentially even, but I think it's just nice to sort of see folks' faces quickly. Again, I think even in the case of staff, there's always sort of a consideration around if someone has a reason why they'd like to request not to be on video, you always want to honor that. This is a really unusual situation. Employees are working from home. We're all working from home. It's just different. So I don't like hard and fast or concrete, thou shalt have your video on or else. But I think as a general preference to have folks on video is good. And I like using the hand feature as much as we can, just to minimize the kind of crosstalk stuff that gets goofy with Zoom and whatever other technologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ezra. Ken, you have a comment?
Yeah, I agree with the last three comments on this topic. That should be no issue. We'd all see each other face to face sitting in a meeting room. So what's the difference if you're on video?
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? If not, we'll ask Janelle to just remind us at the beginning of the meeting to raise our hand, and to, if you feel comfortable, to use the video, and then for staff to use video when they introduce their topic. Michael, does that make sense?
Excuse me, that does make sense. And we've been working at the staff level on other tools to assist make this easier. For example, you know, the backgrounds, we all have our backgrounds, and some may be sensitive to their background for a variety of reasons, of being able to put screens behind you, so you're seen, but it's not too invasive. And so we'll be providing some instructions on how to do that if commissioners prefer.
Tom, I have one other thing.
Yep, Tom, I see your hand. Sorry, I forgot to take off my mute. Go ahead, Tom.
The only other thing is that, and Michael brings up a good point about the video, just in case, you know, people get concerned about it. You know, like in my house, I'm not at my house. I'm in my office, which is like an enclosed cave. But when I'm at home, things are different at homes now. You know, I had a meeting with my daughter the other day, and her cat climbed up on her computer. You know, which at my house, I have my oldest daughter, and her whole family is there. So, you know, I'm the same one, kind of shooing away cats, and I'm telling my wife, no, I can't talk about dinner tonight, you know, during the meeting. So it gets a little odd, but I think we all understand that. You know, things are different, you know, and so, you know, that concern, just if people are a little apprehensive about that, I think everybody gets it. And so if you have to, you know, shut your video down for a while because of something like that, well, fine. The other thing that I'm seeing is that some people, when they put their video on, I think it must take more bandwidth. And I know as much as about computers as nothing, as this cup of coffee. But it seems like it takes more bandwidth, and sometimes people don't have the ability, especially when I've had some of the town meetings that are outlying, people that live out in the where they can't get, maybe better internet. And we've told them to turn their video off, and then it seems to work better. I mean, their voices don't go off, their screens don't freeze. So that's another thing too, that if you're having trouble with your bandwidth, just turn your video off. So anyway, I will be quiet now, but I just wanted to point out that there are good reasons that you might not have your video on, and don't feel bad if you have to turn it off for a while. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Sarah, you have a comment?
Yeah, sorry, at risk of belaboring this topic, the only other piece of feedback that I would contribute is that when we are simply in discussion, I think it's perfectly fine to pull slides down. So Janelle, you are adjusting right now to reflect our current topic, and I appreciate that. And I'm happy to start conversations by showing a slide that says what topic we're on. I think that's a good signal for us and for others. But also it is helpful when we don't have a screen shared, because we can see each other better via Zoom when there isn't a screen shared. So when we have the flexibility and we're simply in discussion to do that, I think it can be helpful.
Okay, well, thank you. I think we've, I don't see any other hands or anything, so we'll have, excuse me, Janelle remind us at the beginning of the meeting to use the video when we feel comfortable. As Tom mentioned, if you have any internet issues, turn off the video, and there'll be times when people may be calling in, so obviously they won't have video at that point. And then we're getting comfortable with the hand feature. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We did the CED update, so we're now on to the Paul with the regulatory and legal review.
Yes, and sorry for the distraction of my moving the computer. I'm getting used to this as well, and I could see that lighting was not working in my dining room. So in any event, just a couple of things. I mentioned at our last commission meeting that the Natural Resources Board approved the emergency rules on firefighting foam at their last meeting. It was a split vote. That will now go to the legislature, and how and if that will proceed is something that we'll just have to watch for in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, there's two other developments on PFAS related rules. One is the proposed surface water quality standard rule is moving forward. I think I noted that the department outlining is a testing process where it would test selected wastewater facilities. I have just last week spoke with Adrian Stocks, who is their division person in charge of that, and asked him if he could give us a heads up as to who he was planning on testing, and also to work with them on coordinating that with whatever facilities there are. So that was a more general inquiry, but I think if the department is intending to sample at the district, that will have at least some advance notice of that. And there was also a willingness to work with us on messaging as to what such testing means or doesn't mean relative to the standards. So that's kind of one development. The other, and several of you may have read about this, but the Department of Health is recommending an additional 16 PFAS compounds be added to the list of groundwater standards for which DNR will establish rules. So in addition to PFOA and PFOS, which are already in the works, another 16 will be coming along shortly. So this is an issue that continues to have considerable regulatory attention. The so-called WISPAC action plan is expected to be finalized either later this month or early next, and that I think will provide some recommendations that may or may not result in either additional rules or legislative proposals. So a number of things happening on that front. But that's all I had. Any questions?
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Paul, I have one. So you mentioned that they're adding those 16 new compounds. Does that mean we'll end up having to test for those?
Well, keep in mind that right now those are only for groundwater standards.
Right.
So it wouldn't directly affect our wastewater discharge. It's possible, depending upon how standards are applied to biosolids, that may be added. I mean, to the extent that we're monitoring groundwater related to any biosolid sites, that could be an issue down the road, but I think it will be a while before we have any direct impact on that.
Okay, that's what I was hoping. Yeah, I realize there's only groundwater, but they seem to move quickly back to treatment plants because we receive groundwater, from municipal wells and.
Yes, and as we saw with PFOS and PFOA, while the initial effort was groundwater, the rulemaking that's now underway does include surface water standards, and whether surface water standards will be developed for these other 16 compounds has yet to be determined, but it could happen.
Okay, Mary, you have a comment?
Yeah, as I remember in the PFAS monitoring plan, the district was planning to analyze for 36 specific PFAS compounds. So I'm just wondering if these added 16 for groundwater would be included in the 36 that is planned for monitoring for the plant. And thinking that the rationale for picking those 16 chemicals might have something to do with their toxicity, and just, I think it would be important to compare and see if we are planning to look for those 16 as part of those 36 in the monitoring plan.
I believe that they are, but I haven't made an exact comparison, but that's certainly something that I think makes sense for us to do.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing or hearing none. Thank you, Paul. That will take us to the future meeting schedule, which is in the packet. I think there's a link to the new on-base system. Any other business or future agenda topics? Nope. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
Wilson, I move
Motion
we
by
adjourn.
Commissioner Wilson.
Second, Commissioner Clark.
Second by Commissioner Clark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Motion to adjourn carries. Thank you, everybody. Stay
Thank you,
healthy.
everybody. Stay
everyone.
safe. Please
Take care,
stay
everybody.
safe.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Aye.